All right, we're going to do Ecology B notes video. We will start with ecosystem formation. Succession, a series of changes by which one habitat changes to another. This is a great photo of this. You start with bare rocks, then the first organisms to arrive are the pioneer organisms, which we have in the notes right here. They're the lichens, mosses. They'll arrive first. Then you have your plants and grasses, smaller bushes, small trees, and forests. Succession. Flora is the name referred to as all the plant species. Think of flowers. Fauna refers to the animal species. Maybe think of a fawn, like a baby deer. Different communities can be identified by the dominant plant. For example, here, sphagnum bog. This is a bog. If you've been to Beaver Lake and if you've gone on the bog trail, a lot of my students have, you would see this dominant plant species. This, those are all pine barrens. This is pine trees. The pine barrens are out at the end of Long Island. Let me try to. This diagram here, the mangrove swamps. This is where freshwater and saltwater meet. If you picture our country when the Mississippi comes down into the Gulf, that's an area where you'd find mangrove swamps. It's super neat. I've done a lot of field work there in college with my marine biology courses. But see how the branches are like growing down into the water for stability? That creates this like web of real protected area for babies, baby fish, crabs, lobster, clams, all sorts of stuff. The climax community. All the populations do not change any further. So this would be the last one up here, the climax at the end of the diagram. It will persist until a major catastrophe destroys it, a volcano, hurricane, fire, flooding, and then succession would begin all over again. Next, biomes. Large regions of the earth that have certain general conditions affected by, and then in asterisks, we went through and put all the different factors that affect them: annual temperature, annual precipitation, intensity and duration of solar radiation, annual temperature range, dominant plant and animal life. And look at this diagram right here. Okay, and I have 3 asterisks over here. An increase in altitude has the same effect as an increase in latitude on the type of biome found on the planet. So think about this. You're at the equator, you're heading to the North Pole. So increase in latitude. So you have the tropical rainforest, the temperate forest, the taiga, the tundra, the polar ice caps. This would be the same as altitude. Perhaps you've hiked a mountain, maybe up in the Adirondacks. So now you're going up the mountain in elevation. Tropical rainforest, temperate forest, taiga, tundra, polar ice. They do like to ask about that as well. Now, to get into the biomes, I know you've covered this quite a bit in middle school. The bioregions doesn't usually ask like a specific question. They would ask more the general conditions we just spoke about. But let's just review. Tundra, remember, has the permanently frozen subsoil. The taiga, the long, severe winters, moose, bears, deciduous forests, that's where we are. We have the seasons, cold winters, warm summers, trees, the deciduous trees, they lose leaves. Tropical rainforests, heavy rainfall and constant warmth. Grasslands, variable rainfall and temperature, animals such as bison. The desert, little rainfall, high daily temps, remember it gets cold at night. And then you have your water biomes. You have freshwater and saltwater. They're relatively stable due to the fact that they can absorb large amounts of heat. So think about Oneida Lake. Would you want to jump in Oneida Lake Memorial Day weekend or Labor Day? Most students would say Labor Day, it's going to be warmer. Water takes a long time to heat up, but it's very stable. But in the fall, it's going to stay warmer. Energy flow in ecosystems. All energy is obtained from food. Food chains, transfer of energy from green plants through a series of organisms. We did this earlier in the year with the owl pellet lab. Remember, I kept saying the arrows go the way the energy flows. The arrows go the way the energy flows. So a grasshopper eats grass. Who gets the energy? Grasshopper. So the arrow goes the way the energy flows. Frog eats grasshopper. Who gets the energy? Frog. The hawk eats the frog. Who gets the energy? The frog. A food web, you just put a bunch of chains together. If it's overlapping, we didn't have this closure and we were in school, there's a huge food web lab we'd be doing. Producer, autotrophs, they're always at the bottom, the green plants. Your consumers, they're going to eat the producers. So in this example, herbivores, which we know eat plants, they are the primary consumer, the first. Then you have your secondary consumers who are eating primary consumers. And you can have carnivores, large carnivores up here. You can even have the top carnivore, the dominant species sometimes at the top you'll see in a food web. Decomposers you will see in the food web. Lots of times they'll put them down here and they'll have an arrow coming back down. These are the organisms that break down organic waste and remains of dead organisms. So back in the ground and then return it for reuse. The pyramid of energy. It sounds like what it is, a pyramid. It's going to start out heavy at the base. As it goes up, it decreases. So the amount of energy decreases as you go up the pyramid. Some of the energy is lost as heat to the environment. It shows over here the decomposers and how they recycle it. There's also the biomass pyramid. The amount of organic matter, the mass, and energy decrease as you go up. See the number of wheat? There's a high number at the bottom where the pyramid's heavy. As you go up to the owl, the top consumer, there's only one. Humans in the biosphere. Humans exert a powerful influence over the environment and can change it in many ways. All right, now we're going to end the year with humans impacting the environment. We're going to start with negative. You're going to see this is way longer than positive. But I have a couple videos I want to show you some ideas that people have come up with to help the negative impacts on the earth. So let's get started. Negative changes. Human population growth. Population is now growing at a rapid rate. So here with the history of time, it's relatively been flat and then it's spiked. I know you go over this in social studies class as well. Lengthened lifespans have contributed to this. Attempts to increase our food supply, though, have had negative effects on our environment with mass farming. Another negative impact humans have done, they've overhunted, trapped, and fished animals to extreme where they are extinct. But we have the endangered species list so that we can identify ones. And the government hands out permits for hunting. They kind of keep an eye on numbers. Importation of an organism. This is one the Regents loves to bring up. Importation, exactly what it says. The organism is not native to that area. It's not from there. Organisms may have no natural enemies. Like they don't have a predator because they've been introduced into that area. They can multiply. The population is going to get really high, causing a disruption in ecosystem. Zebra mussels, they're around here. They came over from Europe in the bottom of the boats into the St. Lawrence River, into the Great Lakes. Population went up really high because there's no natural predator. Purple loosestrife. This is a plant. You'll see it growing on the side of the road, kind of up a telephone pole. The Adirondacks is filled with it. Again, not native to this area. There's no check because it wasn't from this area. So the species, it's just taking over. Goby fish. Some of you may know of that, those of you that fish. Exploitation of wildlife. Species are hunted or gathered to satisfy needs other than food. This is the person that wants to get the animal so they can have like a trophy on the wall, like a big rack. It was common in the 1940s and 50s to walk into a doctor's office and see a gorilla hand for an ashtray. So it was like a prestigious thing. So yes, that is a gorilla hand that was killed um, and sold. And here they're showing the stuffed and trophy. And Mr. Fico and I had to put in Tiger King because during this closure, all of you guys have been watching it, but really it fits in there. The ivory is another one. The trade from elephants, like they're poached and killed and sold for the ivory. Poor land management. Growth of cities and suburbs destroys natural ecosystems. And you will see abandoned buildings like this all over. And, there'll be a brand new Dunkin' Donuts going up, and maybe 4 buildings over, there's an abandoned building. Adverse effects of technology. So, expansion of industry has contributed to land, water, and air pollution. Here's some solid waste going right into the water. Phosphates, heavy metals, PCBs. Onondaga Lake by Destiny, right in Syracuse. That lake is very polluted. They've been cleaning it up though, but lots of companies were just dumping garbage right in it from their factories. Syracuse China would dump plates in it that were chipped, different things like that. Also in the water, we have a huge problem with plastic. I know you know about this. Our state has now banned single-use bags, but here's a bunch of plastic in the water. Here's a turtle that had a ring. It got stuck in a ring and now it's grown and is living with plastic on it. Very sad. I'm going to show a video to talk about the plastics in the ocean, but I'm going to wait till the end. Air pollution, factories, acid rain. These are trees destroyed by acid rain in the Adirondacks. Pesticides and herbicides that we've used, golf courses, a development, the house wants grass. They end up entering the water supply as they trickle through the soil. They pass through food webs. Waste disposal, toxic and solid waste. Major cities, especially along coastal areas, they have gone out to sea for decades, just tossing solid waste and garbage into the ocean. Ozone depletion. Now, you've probably heard of this, the destruction of the ozone layer, and that ozone layer protects you from the sun's UV rays. So that's super important. You do not want it to cause a mutation and have skin cancer. So it's important that ozone layer is there. It has been destroyed by industrial gases, CFCs. They're called chlorofluorocarbons. Refrigerators, air conditioners, and we've tried to make more efficient appliances and try to get people to turn in the old refrigerators, give them a rebate. Here's a picture with data from 1979, and here's some from 2008. And I've read an article more recently that they're starting to see the hole close again, so that's good news. Global warming. I want to make sure you understand this. The rise in the Earth's average temperature due to increased amounts of greenhouse gases. Okay, the biggest greenhouse gas is CO2. It's from the burning of fossil fuels. What ends up happening is traps the solar radiation. So let me explain this so you understand this. The sun comes down, and there's your solar radiation. It hits the Earth. When it is reflected, it's just physics, it's a different wavelength. It's infrared wavelength, and it's redirected up and it gets trapped. See this orange layer? That's your greenhouse gases. So you can see the CO2, the CH4, the N2O. CO2 is our biggest one. More recently, over here, you have like more of an enhanced greenhouse effect. So again, the sun comes down, and when it's released from the Earth's surface, it gets trapped. That's your greenhouse effect, like you would be in a greenhouse. But this orange layer is thicker and bigger because we've released more CO2 in the atmosphere. Burning a fossil fuel, think of less trees. We've torn down forests and planted houses, so less recycling of CO2. So see how the orange layer is thicker? That's what's causing the Earth's temperature to rise. Okay, thus, because the temperature has risen, we're seeing effects on the planet. One of them are the glaciers. Okay, they are melting. I was just in Montana last summer in Glacier National Park, and I'm so happy that I got to see some of the glaciers, but they are receding. This is a huge one that is down in Antarctica, Thwaites Glacier. They're doing a ton of research on this. This is a super current PBS video from last month. So this will show you what's happening with the research that through it was our winter, but their summer, what they just did. This is research from a submarine within the last year to go to Thwaites Glacier. I would really like you to check out the videos. Very interesting stuff. Now, some positive change. Population control, encouragement of fewer children. You've talked about this in social studies class. China, the government is actually enforcing the fewer children. There's effective means of birth control now. Conservation of resources. You're seeing more solar power, more renewable sources of energy instead of using non renewable like coal and oil. So you're seeing the sun, the wind. If you ever want to drive up to Tug Hill, if you have not been up there, it's a short drive from where we live, and you can see all of the windmills up there. Pollution controls, laws enacted to help air, water, and land pollution. The 1970s, that was a big decade for air and water and land. Species preservation, wildlife refuge. We have national parks to help protect against extinction of certain species. All right, now I wanted to show you a couple of those videos. I want to start with this one. So this is the Pacific Garbage Patch video I wanted to show you.
Problem of marine plastic. It's a global issue because plastic accumulates in gyres, large circular currents that thread through the world's oceans.
What's leaving land heading out to sea is all the single-use packaging. It's the straws, the bags, the bottles, the cup lids, the stir sticks, all this junk that we use once and throw away. A plastic bottle leaving California will get to Japan in about 3 to 5 years and come back across the northern half of the North Pacific. That's spinning mass of water as a gyre. Plastic trash will migrate to those zones and get stuck. We actually take boats out in the middle of nowhere, we drag our net behind the boat, and we count the plastic particles that are floating. Working with ocean modelers, we can get these regional maps of how much trash is out there, what it is, and where it is.
But answering even these basic questions about marine debris has proven to be surprisingly challenging. In fact, everything we know about the proverbial Great Pacific Garbage Patch started in 1990 when a container ship spilled 61,000 sneakers into the ocean.
Realizing that a lot of these sneakers would never come to shore, that they would just be stuck in this vortex. Curtis Ebbesmeyer, working with James Ingram Jr. at NOAA, they're the ones that came up with the term Great Pacific Garbage Patch.
Captain Charles Moore is often credited with the first observations of the patch, a constellation of microplastic particles that captured the public's imagination.
Captain Charles Moore had described the area. He said, look, I'm in an area roughly twice the size of Texas where I'm doing my transects, and that hit the media by storm. But aren't these islands of trash? They don't exist. It's more like a smog of microplastic particles. Billions of them, very toxic over a wide area.
Even when they become brittle and break apart, plastic pieces persist. Unable to oxidize or become waterlogged like metals, wood, or paper, all types of plastic are designed to defeat natural decay.
In general, high-density polyethylene, number 2 plastic, is the most common plastic in consumer use. And it makes your soap bottles, it makes your toothbrushes, it makes many of the consumer goods that float out in the garbage patch.
If we think in terms of all the plastic that's been produced since 1950, since it's a scientific material, hydrocarbons, it's probably still here today on the planet.
So, something to think about since plastic has been around since the 50s, that stuff is still here. It has not been recycled back into the ground. So, now here's a positive thing. I want you to watch this gentleman with these sea bins.
My name is Pete Siglinski, and I'm the CEO of Seabin Project, and we're here today in Ballena Isle Marina here in San Francisco, and we're just getting ready to put a sea bin in the water. Sea bin is like a floating trash can, and we put it in the water at marinas, and we put it on a floating dock, and we pull water in from the top, and then we pump it out the bottom, and then we filter the debris and the trash and the oil with a filter in the middle of that. The filters that we're using, they're a fine mesh, and it's at the moment they're polypropylene plastics. So essentially we're using plastic to catch plastics. With the current filter we're using, we're catching microplastics to 2 millimeters in size.
Okay, so I just kind of wanted to show you a little bit of a cleanup. Now that's just a local area around a marina and a dock, but I just want to show you a couple of these maybe to inspire you to think about your impact on the environment. And you are our youth, our younger generation. So you're all up and coming, and hopefully something in one of these videos possibly might challenge you to think about coming up with an idea on your own. Now, this couple is also inspiring. This couple is also inspiring. Just kind of watch what they have in mind.
But what if there was an invention, just one, that could solve every single one of these problems?
Hi, we're Scott and Julie Broussard, inventors of solar roadways.
We met in the 1960s when we were 3 and 4 years old. Many things have changed since then, but do you know what hasn't changed? Our roads. We're so excited to show you our prototype solar parking lot.
The first thing you'll notice is the surface of our parking lot is made out of glass. It's not your typical glass that you'd think of, but a super strong, textured, tempered glass. And our glass has been subjected to traction testing, load testing, and impact resistance testing, and passed all with flying colors. The next thing you see are the dark rectangular solar cells, and they're sitting on a green background. That green background is the circuit board, which contains the microprocessor, which turns it into an intelligent road. You'll notice that for our prototype, we're only able to cover 69% of the surface with the solar cells, and our final version will be covered 100%. Our mounting holes will soon be covered, and we'll put mastic in between the panels to eliminate the gaps. The heating elements will keep the road surface snow and ice free all winter long. Our cable corridor has two sections. One is for power and data, and the other is for stormwater. Data lines include telephone, high-speed internet, fiber optic, things like that. The power side replaces the need for overhead or underground cables and eliminates the possibility of the overhead cables getting icy and coming down. The other side is for stormwater.
Stormwater is a huge source of pollution of our lakes and rivers and oceans. We can treat it right on site, or we can move it to a treatment center. Our panels have microprocessors. This gives us the ability to make all of our roads and parking lots and every other application intelligent. In addition to illuminating the LEDs and reading the load cells, the microprocessor is a two-way communications device. With 128 LEDs in each panel and 5 different colors, there is no limit to the lines, texts, and graphics you can create.
Our smart roads will prevent accidents by warning you of danger and will pave the way for driverless vehicles. The solar roadway is a decentralized power grid, which can become the backbone of the new smart grid.
We've been working really hard to use as many recycled materials as we can. We'd love to hire recycling experts to make it even greener.
So this couple, that couple has a great idea, but they're running into problems with it being very expensive. So they're working now on trying to get it more affordable. So I just wanted to show you those videos to maybe inspire you to think about your impact on the earth, and maybe something you might come in your head that you might want to invent, develop, work with for the future.